Welcome back. Today I'm giving you a new paradigm to feel happier and have better focus, energy, memory, and even improve your relationships. Dave and Bonnie failed marital therapy. That's right, their therapist gave them an F. How do you fail marital therapy? Well, after spending 3 years and over $25,000 and multiple medications and diagnoses for Dave, including bipolar disorder, ADHD, and a personality disorder, the therapist told them to get divorced. This made the couple upset because they wanted to be married. When they got mad at the therapist, she got nervous and told them that she knew a clinic who takes care of really difficult people and sent them to see us. The husband's SPECT scan looked awful, much like the scans of addicts. But in his history, he said he didn't drink and had never used drugs. Now, what's the first thing we learn in psychiatry school about addicts? They lie. They lie a lot. So in front of his wife, I asked him again if he drank or used drugs. He said, "Dr. Amen, I have many problems." That's not it. So I turned to the wife and asked if that was true. And she said, "Oh, yes, Dr. Amen. He doesn't drink and he's never done drugs. He's just a jerk." As I chuckled at her comment, I wondered why his scan looked so awful. It could be infections, a near-drowning episode, very low thyroid, or an environmental toxin. My next question to Dave was, "Where do you work?" He said, "I work in a furniture factory, finishing furniture." He was doing drugs. In fact, he was doing the worst drug of abuse, which is inhaling organic solvents. My next question to Bonnie was, "So when did he become a jerk?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Did you marry him that way? Do you have daddy issues that you're trying to work out?" "No," she said, "when we first got married, he was great. It wasn't until about 5 years ago that we started having trouble." Then she put her hand over her mouth and said, "Oh my God, that was about the time he started this job. Do you think our problems could be related to his work?" In that moment, Bonnie went from seeing Dave as a jerk and someone her therapist was telling her to divorce to someone who needed help. In his attempt to be a good husband and support his family, he was being poisoned. It was easy to call Dave bad, but the harder question is to ask, why? Psychiatric diagnoses described his behavior, but not the cause, which is why the medications didn't work. How do you know unless you look? The most important intervention was to stop the toxic exposure and put his brain into a healing environment. I put him on our Bright Minds program, and with the right treatment, his behavior got better, as did his scan and their marriage. I wonder how many families are suffering because one of the parents or children has a brain problem that no one is aware of. How do you do marital therapy or family therapy with this brain? It will never work until you change your brain to heal your mind. So far, we've discussed the first 3 steps to end mental illness. Step number 1, stop using the term mental illness and call these issues what they really are: brain health issues that steal your mind. 2, learn to love your brain. It is involved in everything you do and everything you are. And 3, prevent or treat the 11 Bright Minds risk factors. In this part of the program, I'm going to talk about first doing no harm, getting the whole family involved, and starting today. Step number 4, first do no harm. In making recommendations for our patients at Amen Clinics, we always try to keep a number of principles in mind, and you should too whenever you go to the doctor, such as first do no harm. Use the least toxic, most effective treatments. Don't start something you'll have a hard time stopping just to deal with the anxiety of the moment. Many people are prescribed anti-anxiety or antidepressant medication in short office visits, and doctors rarely tell you they may be very hard to stop. Medication should never be the only thing you do, and always think skills, not just pills. Let me be very clear. If I'm dealing with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or severe depression, I usually start with medication to stabilize the situation while I'm trying to figure out what may have caused it. But I am always trying to support my patient's nutrition to be able to lower any medications that may be needed. Did you know that as a population, Americans are deficient in magnesium, choline, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin C, D, and E, and potassium? All of these are vital for your brain and cognitive performance. Also, deficiencies in iron can make you anxious and unfocused, but you shouldn't just take iron. It needs to be measured in your blood so you know if you need more or less. Too much iron is associated with heart disease and premature aging. Unfortunately, most doctors are not trained in using natural supplements, so they usually start with medications for anxiety, depression, and ADHD, but there is good scientific evidence for magnesium, GABA, and theanine to calm anxiety, green tea, zinc, and rhodiola for focus, saffron, SAMe, curcumins, and omega-3 fatty acids for depression, and ginkgo, phosphatidylserine, and huperzine A for memory. In the program materials, I give you our method for dealing with many different brain health issues, including mood swings, psychosis, temper problems, memory loss, addictions, insomnia, and ADHD. But for now, let me just show you 6 things you can do today to lower anxiety before starting medications. 1, check for low blood sugar, anemia, and high thyroid, as these can cause anxiety. 2, meditation and hypnosis can be powerful to lower anxiety. 3, slow, deep breathing. 3 seconds in and twice as long to breathe out. Do this 10 times to trigger an immediate relaxation response. 4, do calming exercises such as Tai Chi, which can also make your brain bigger and help your memory. 5, learn to kill the ants, or the automatic negative thoughts that steal your happiness. You do not have to believe every stupid thought you have. 6, try nutritional supplements like magnesium, GABA, and theanine before resorting to anti-anxiety medications that can be both addictive and toxic to your brain. All of these strategies have research showing they may help you, and none of them will ever hurt you. We cannot say that about any medication. Adriana was a healthy, smart 16-year-old when she went on a mountain vacation with her family. When they arrived at their cabin, they were surrounded by 6 deer, which they thought was a magical moment. But 10 days later, Adriana became agitated and started hallucinating. She was admitted to a psychiatric hospital and prescribed different antipsychotic medications, which didn't help. The next 3 months were a painful road of different doctors and medications at a cost of nearly $100,000. Adriana had become a shadow of herself, and a doctor at Stanford told her mother, Deb, that her daughter had schizophrenia and would need to be on medication for the rest of her life, and as her mother, she just needed to accept it. But Deb was unwilling to accept that and brought her to see us. Her SPECT scan showed areas of unusually high activity, which caused us to look for other causes of her symptoms, such as an infection. It turned out Adriana had Lyme disease, a bacterial infection caused by deer ticks. On antibiotics, she got her life back and recently got her master's degree from the University of London. Look at these maps, which show the highest incidence of schizophrenia on the top and Lyme disease on the bottom. They're nearly identical. Anyone with schizophrenia in these areas should consider Lyme testing. Every day about noon for the last 6 years, I get a text from Adriana's mother asking how she can pray for me. First, do no harm. If I was an evil ruler, I'd make diagnoses that could affect the rest of your life, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, just based on symptoms without any biological information. I'd ignore natural ways to heal the brain and use powerful medications as first-line treatments against mood, anxiety, and attentional problems. And I'd have insurance companies deny care for prevention and only spend money when people are sick. Did you know that 75% of our healthcare dollars are spent on chronic, preventable illnesses? We must do better because our children and grandchildren will never be able to afford the tsunami of illness headed their way. Step number 5, get the whole family involved. Brain health issues do not just affect the person who suffers. It affects everyone around them, and nearly 1 million families break apart every year under the stress. When we first met Amelie, she was only 6 years old. She was anxious, withdrawn, behind in school, and had armies of ants, automatic negative thoughts, attacking her every day. Whenever she was upset, she could never speak up and bottled the stress which made her sick. But with help, learning to love her brain, express herself, and kill the ants, she now excels in school, is reading 3 grades above her level, and is much more assertive. Her future is much brighter, but we can never stop being vigilant to protect her from the toxic combination of genetic vulnerability mixed with traumatic experience that typically triggers mental health issues. When I first started scanning people, I realized that I needed to be concerned about all the brains in the family. Family dynamics are never based on just one brain. Amelie and Alizé were totally impacted by the brain dysfunction of their parents. Tamara was also impacted by the brain health of her mom and dad. If you spend time with parents who've been traumatized and are depressed, anxious, or abusing drugs, the stress can reshape your brain to make you more vulnerable to depression and substance abuse. If you spend time with people who have a lot of ants, your ants will mate with their ants, and you'll create mutant ants that will infest your relationship with negativity. Here are 5 simple ways to support everyone in the family. 1, encourage communication. People cannot read your mind. They don't know what you're going through unless you tell them. 2, use magic phrases to open communication, such as, I'm concerned about you. I'm here for you. Can we talk about how you're feeling? Can I go with you to get help? 3, tell people that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Imagine if a business was in trouble and the owners ignored the problems. They'd go bankrupt. The same thing happens when you ignore brain health issues. Your family will go bankrupt. 4, tough love works for people whose brains work right. But for people with troubled brains, tough love is like doing software programming on people with hardware problems, which is not very effective. 5, when a person has a setback, it's hard on everyone, no question. But it is better to be curious about what happened rather than furious and judgmental. As we've seen today, behavior is much more complicated than most people think. I also want to be clear that this program is not just for vulnerable people, it's for all of us. If you don't take care of your brain, you risk losing your mind. But the good news is that you are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, as we've seen with Alizé and Amelie, Jarrett, Gary, Stephanie, Lisa, Bonnie, Dave, Adriana, and thousands of others. You can do this. None of it is hard. It just takes motivation, focus, and the right plan. Step number 6, start today. I was invited to the White House to discuss prison reform, the opiate epidemic, and mental illness in America. The same way our society can work against us to create mental illness, we can also work together to end it. My recommendation was to create a nationwide brain health campaign taught in schools, prisons, churches, on public television, and at work, anywhere people gather. Our research shows if you get healthy as a group, family, friends, or coworkers, it doubles your chances for success. Plus, the really great news, when you focus on brain health, you not only decrease your risk of anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's disease, and addiction, but you also become a better friend, a better son, a better mother, and a better grandfather. I was named after my grandfather, and he was my best friend growing up. He was a candy maker, and one of my earliest memories was standing at his stove making fudge. He was one of the happiest people I've ever met, even being married to my grandmother, which could be pretty stressful. But all of that changed after he had a heart attack. He was sad, cried easily, and couldn't sleep. He was diagnosed with depression and put on medication. It was such a dramatic change. I was in medical school at the time and learned firsthand about the connection between heart disease and depression. Did you know that 60% of people who have a heart attack will develop depression within 18 months? His funeral was one of the saddest days of my life. The joy I felt from his love and the sadness I felt from losing him caused me to constantly ask myself 2 important questions over the last 40 years. 1, how can I love other people like he loved me? Isn't that really what life's about? Being loving, connected, useful, and helpful? And 2, how can I take better care of my brain so I can love my family, be independent, and do the work I love for as long as possible? In the program materials, I give you all the tools you need, step by step, to have a better brain and a better mind for as long as possible. Pass this information on. Our society is going the wrong way, and the evil ruler is winning, with the deaths from drugs, alcohol, and suicide at their highest levels in recorded history. We cannot wait for the good ruler to save us. Rather, you need to become the good ruler of your life. You need to become the superhero and put on the cape to take control of your destiny and the destinies of those you love. Our mission at Amen Clinics is to end mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. But it has to start with all of us today. not tomorrow, which is something you've been telling yourself for decades. Tomorrow never comes. Today is the day to get serious about brain health. Today is the day to stop being in denial about what is happening to our families and our society. Today is the day to start influencing the health of those you love by living in a healthy way. If you don't make time for your brain today, you will be forced to make time for illness tomorrow. So now we come to the end. My prayer for you is that this is just the beginning of a new way to think about your brain and your mind. Success starts with a healthy brain. Failure is often the result of a brain gone wrong. The good news is that no matter how bad you've been to your brain, it is never too late to change your brain to heal your mind. May God bless you. I'm Dr. Dan Millman.